The silent music warning, the observation deck of Frontier Station. Kepler hummed with its usual rhythm. Commander Sarah Chen stood before the transparent viewport, watching distant stars flicker like forgotten memories. Her shift had been unremarkable until the proximity alarms shattered the calm, with urgent red pulses that painted the walls in warning colors. A junior officer named Marcus Webb rushed to the central console, his fingers dancing across holographic displays that materialized in the air. The readings made no sense. 12 massive vessels had appeared at the system's edge, their signatures unlike anything in the database. These were not the sleek cruisers of the Galactic Council or the aggressive wedge-shaped warships of the crime. These ships looked ancient, carved from dark stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Sarah moved quickly to Marcus Station and studied the data streaming across multiple screens. The vessels measured 3 km in length, covered in geometric patterns that pulsed with faint bioluminescence. Their propulsion systems operated on principles that human science could not immediately identify. No exhaust trails, no radiation signatures, just smooth, gliding motion through the void as if space itself carried them forward. Marcus initiated first contact protocols, broadcasting standard greeting sequences in 17 languages across multiple frequencies. Silence answered. The fleet maintained formation, moving steadily toward the inner system where Earth waited, blue and green and vulnerable. Sarah felt ice forming in her chest. Humanity had encountered many species since joining the galactic community 50 years ago, but nothing prepared her for ships that predated recorded history. She ordered a deep scan of the galactic archives, requesting any information matching these vessel configurations. The station's artificial intelligence worked through petabytes of data while Sarah watched the mysterious fleet advance. Minutes stretched into uncomfortable tension. Then the AI delivered results that made Sarah's breath catch. 3 files emerged from restricted military archives, documents sealed behind encryption protocols that required authorization from Earth Command itself. Sarah entered her command codes and forced the files open. What she saw made her skin prickle. The documents dated back 2 centuries, compiled during humanity's first tentative explorations beyond the solar system. Early survey teams had discovered ruins on a dead moon orbiting a brown dwarf star. Among those ruins, they found warning markers, universal symbols that transcended language. Symbols indicated danger, contamination, and a single word that appeared in multiple ancient scripts. Humanity. The reports described artifacts covered in pictographic warnings showing humanoid figures surrounded by radiating lines of destruction. Accompanying the images were audio recordings, deteriorated but partially reconstructed. A voice speaking an unknown language translated by linguistic algorithms into broken phrases that chilled Sarah to her core. The voice spoke of Earth as a quarantine zone, a place where something impossible had been contained. The ancient civilization that left these warnings called themselves the Veiler, masters of genetic engineering who had shaped life across countless worlds. Sarah pulled up the second document. This one contains survey data from an expedition to Titan. 15 years ago, miners drilling for rare minerals had discovered a chamber buried 3 km beneath the frozen surface. Inside that chamber waited a crystalline structure containing preserved biological samples and a device that projected holographic memories when powered. The memories showed Earth as it existed 100,000 years ago, covered in ice during the last glacial maximum. In those memories, massive ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, landing in regions that would later become modern. City figures emerged from those ships, tall beings with silver skin and forearms wearing suits that shifted colors to match their surroundings. The Veiler had come to Earth with a mission to study the primitive hominids struggling to survive in the harsh ice age environment. The holographic records showed veiled their scientists observing human ancestors from hidden positions. They documented how early humans hunted mammoth herds, crafted tools from stone and bone, and survived in conditions that would kill most intelligent species. But the veil there noticed something unusual. When humans suffered injuries that should have been fatal, they recovered with impossible speed. Broken bones healed in weeks instead of months. Infections that killed other species barely slowed humans down. Intrigued, the Veiler decided to conduct experiments. They introduced controlled pathogens into isolated human populations, diseases engineered to test immune response limits. Within 3 generations, those human groups had developed complete immunity. The Veiler escalated their tests, exposing humans to extreme temperature variations, toxic compounds, and radiation levels that sterilized other life forms. Each time, humans adapted, their bodies changing in ways that violated established biological principles. The third document contained the most disturbing information. 20 years ago, a deep space probe had detected a derelict Veer station drifting in interstellar space. A recovery team brought the station back to Earth for study. Inside, they found laboratory logs describing the Veer's final experiments on Earth. The aliens had grown frightened of humanity's adaptive capabilities and decided on extermination. They released bioweapons designed to target mammalian nervous systems, weapons that had successfully eliminated threats on other worlds. Bioweapons failed, humans survived, and more than that, they thrived. The Veil. Their logs described panic among the research teams as they watched human populations not only resist the bioweapons but absorb them, incorporating the foreign genetic material into their own DNA. Some humans began exhibiting enhanced cognitive abilities, improved sensory perception, and physical capabilities that exceeded natural human limits. The final log entry came from the Veiler expedition commander. The text translated into human languages read with desperate urgency. It spoke of humanity as an evolutionary anomaly, a species that should not exist according to the fundamental laws governing organic life. Throughout the galaxy, the commander ordered immediate withdrawal from Earth and recommended that all space-faring civilizations avoid human space permanently. The last line sent shivers through Sarah's body as she read it. They are not what they appear to be. They are something older, something that remembers. Sarah looked up from the documents to see the ancient fleet on her monitors. As she watched, something impossible happened. The 12 vessels, which had been steadily approaching Earth, suddenly stopped. Their bioluminescent patterns flickered wildly, pulsing with what Sarah could only interpret as alarm, then moving as one coordinated entity. the entire fleet turned and accelerated away from human space at speeds that defied their massive size. Marcus stared at the tactical display in confusion, reporting that the fleet had entered faster than light travel and vanished from sensors. Completely, Sarah understood what the young officer could not. The Veiler had returned after 100,000 years, perhaps, drawn by humanity's expansion into the stars. They had come to check on their ancient experiment to see what had become of the species they had tried to eliminate, and when they detected Earth's presence, when they felt whatever strange emanation marked humanity's existence, they had fled in terror. Sarah initiated a priority communication with Earth Command, knowing that this incident would force humanity to confront uncomfortable questions about their own origins. She thought about the ancient warnings, the failed experiments, and the fear in that final veil. Their log entry, humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now Sarah understood a darker truth. Humanity had never been alone. They had been avoided, quarantined, feared by civilizations that recognized something in humans that humans themselves did not yet understand. As she drafted her report, Sarah noticed something strange in the archive documents. Each file contained metadata showing that they had been accessed multiple times over the past century, always by individuals with maximum security clearance, always followed by immediate classification upgrades. Someone in Earth's government had known about the veiled warnings for generations. Someone had known that humanity's presence inspired fear, ancient species, and they had kept it secret, buried beneath layers of authorization codes and forgotten archives. The station's AI interrupted her thoughts with a priority alert. Deep ground-penetrating radar had detected anomalies in the Amazon rainforest, massive underground structures that did not match any known geological formations. The coordinates placed them directly beneath regions where ancient human civilizations had flourished. Thousands of years ago, Sarah authorized an immediate investigation team, knowing that whatever lay buried in Earth's soil might finally explain why the veil there had fled in terror and why humanity had been left alone for 100,000 years. The awakening truth. The expedition to the Amazon required 6 days of preparation. Dr. James Morrison led a team of 20 scientists and military personnel through dense rainforest that had never felt the cut of modern development. They traveled by river for 2 days, then hiked through muddy terrain where ancient trees formed cathedral ceilings of green. Above their heads, the coordinates from satellite scans brought them to a clearing where moss-covered stones formed patterns too regular to be natural. James supervised the deployment of ground-penetrating equipment while armed guards established a perimeter. The scans revealed caverns 30 m below the surface, chambers arranged in geometric patterns that suggested intelligent design. His team spent 3 days carefully excavating a vertical shaft, removing earth and stone with archaeological precision to preserve any artifacts they might encounter. When they finally broke through into the underground structure, James descended on cable harnesses with 5 others, while the rest of the team monitored from above. Their helmet lights revealed walls made from the same dark material as the veil their ship's surfaces covered, in the geometric patterns that pulsed with faint light when humans approached. The corridors stretched in 4 directions, each one leading deeper into the complex. James chose the eastern passage and led his team forward. Air tasted stale but breathable, filtered through ventilation systems that had operated untended for millennia. They walked for 15 minutes before the corridor opened into a massive chamber at least 100 m across. In the center of that chamber stood a cylindrical structure made from transparent crystal, and inside that crystal, suspended in fluid that glowed with soft blue light, floated a being that made James' heart hammer against his ribs. The creature stood 3 meters tall, with silver skin and 4 arms ending in delicate fingers. Its head resembled human proportions, but elongated, with large eyes that remained closed. Medical sensors showed that the being lived, held in some form of suspended animation that preserved its body against time's decay. James recognized it immediately from the archived holographic records. This was a Valor, an actual specimen of the species that had visited Earth 100,000 years ago. James contacted surface teams and requested immediate support from Earth Command. Within hours, a military transport arrived carrying additional scientists and equipment to establish a proper research facility around the chamber. They spent 2 days analyzing the crystal cylinder before discovering the activation mechanism, a panel that responded to human touch with the same pattern of bioluminescent pulses they had seen throughout the complex. When they activated the panel, the blue fluid began draining from the cylinder through hidden channels in the floor. The Vedar's eyes opened slowly, revealing pupils that dilated as they adjusted to the chamber's lighting. The being drew a shuddering breath, its chest expanding as lungs that had not worked for thousands of years remembered their function. It looked at the humans surrounding its chamber with an expression that James could only describe as profound sorrow. The veil there spoke, its voice producing sounds that human vocal cords could not replicate. But the chamber's walls began projecting holographic translations, ancient systems designed to facilitate communication. Awakening after their long sleep, the being identified itself as Observer Keelthin, assigned to Earth during the final veiled expedition 100,000 years ago. It had volunteered to remain behind in suspended animation, serving as a living witness to whatever humanity might become. Kellen's story emerged over days of careful questioning. The veil there had been a civilization spanning 12 galaxies, masters of genetic engineering who had shaped the evolution of thousands of species across countless worlds. They sought to understand the fundamental principles governing life and consciousness, conducting experiments that lasted millions of years. When they discovered Earth, they found humans existing in what they considered a primitive state, barely surviving the Ice Age conditions. But the Veiler recognized something unprecedented in human DNA. Humans possessed what Kellen called evolutionary resonance, an ability to adapt instantly to any threat or challenge. This capability violated every principle of biological evolution that the Veildar had documented across the universe. Evolution required generations of selective pressure, mutations accumulating slowly over time. Humans change within single lifetimes, their bodies rewriting genetic code in response to immediate danger. The Veiler decided to test humanity's limits. They introduced diseases that had destroyed civilizations on other worlds. Humans developed immunity within years. They exposed humans to radiation levels that sterilized planets. Humans adapted, their cells developing repair mechanisms that prevented genetic damage. They created environmental toxins designed to collapse entire ecosystems. Humans thrived, their bodies learning to neutralize and eliminate the poisons. Kellen described the growing fear veiled their scientists as they realized what they had discovered. Humans were not simply highly adaptive, they were something else, something that absorbed every challenge and emerged stronger. The Veiler conducted more extreme experiments, introducing genetic modifications designed to limit human reproduction. Instead, the modifications enhanced human fertility and cognitive development. They tried psychological warfare using advanced technology to induce fear and submission. Humans responded by developing resistance to mental manipulation and forming stronger social bonds. The final experiment proved most terrifying. The Veiler released nano-M machines designed to disassemble organic matter at the molecular level, weapons that had successfully eliminated rebellious populations on conquered worlds. Nano-M machines entered human bodies as intended, but instead of destroying tissue, they were absorbed. Human immune systems recognized the machines as foreign objects, analyzed their structure, and replicated them. Within months, the Veiler observed humans whose bodies contained biological versions of their own nanotechnology operating under human control. Kellen explained that this discovery triggered immediate evacuation protocols. The Veiler expedition commander declared Earth a threat to galactic stability and ordered all personnel to abandon the planet, but Kellen volunteered to stay behind, believing that humanity deserved witnesses who could explain their own history. Once they developed the capacity to understand it, the veiled are sealed. The underground complex erased all surface evidence of their presence and fled Earth with warnings broadcast across known space. Any civilization that encountered humans should avoid contact, maintain distance, and never attempt to challenge or contain them. James asked the question that burned in every human mind since the ancient fleet's retreat: what exactly were humans? Kellen's response sent shock waves through the scientific community. Humans were not native to Earth. They had been placed here, imprisoned on this world by a civilization even older than the Veiler, a species that feared what humans might become if allowed to spread unchecked through the universe. The ancient civilization recognized that humans possessed something unique, a form of consciousness that could interface with reality itself at quantum levels. Humans did not merely evolve through genetic mutation. They evolved through will, their consciousness directing changes in their own bodies according to need and desire. This ability had been limited by placing humans on Earth, a world isolated from the galactic community, surrounded by natural barriers that prevented early space travel. But the prison had failed. Humans developed technology, reached for the stars, and joined the galactic community despite every obstacle placed in their path. And now, as humanity expanded outward, the ancient species that still existed in distant regions of space recognized the signs. They saw what the Veiler had seen 100,000 years ago. They witnessed humanity's impossible adaptation, their refusal to accept limitations, their drive to overcome every challenge through sheer determination. Kellen revealed the final truth that changed everything humanity thought they knew about themselves. Evolutionary resonance, the adaptive capabilities that terrified ancient civilizations, was not humanity's ultimate potential. It was merely the beginning, a dormant ability waiting to fully awaken. Every generation of humans grew stronger, more capable, more connected to the quantum fabric of reality. Eventually humans would reach a threshold where their consciousness would expand beyond physical limitations entirely. The ancient civilizations feared this transformation because they had seen it once before in the species that created humans and then tried to contain them. That original species had transcended physical form completely, becoming beings of pure consciousness that existed across all possible realities simultaneously. They had abandoned the physical universe entirely, leaving behind only one legacy: humanity designed to follow the same path but prevented from reaching it by imprisonment on Earth. Now the prison had broken. Humanity walked among the stars, and every ancient civilization that still remembered the old warnings understood what was coming. Humans would evolve beyond flesh and bone, beyond ships and weapons, beyond anything that current galactic powers could comprehend or control. The transformation had already begun, triggered by humanity's expansion into space and exposure to the wider universe. James listened to Kellen's testimony with growing awe and terror. Tests conducted on the expedition team confirmed the Veiler's claims. Every human showed genetic markers that were activating dormant sequences, waking up in response to exposure to the underground complex. Some team members reported enhanced sensory perception, seeing colors beyond normal human range. Others experienced time differently, their consciousness processing events at accelerated rates. One scientist demonstrated the ability to interface directly with electronic systems through touch, accessing data without physical connections. Kellen warned that the transformation would accelerate rapidly. Now that humans knew the truth, consciousness shaped reality, and human consciousness was finally understanding its own nature. Within generations, humans would develop abilities that current science considered impossible. They would manipulate matter through thought, traverse distances without ships, and eventually transcend physical existence entirely. The ancient species avoided Earth because they remembered what happened when beings like humans fully awakened. The universe itself changed, reshaped by consciousness that operated beyond physical laws. Some civilizations welcomed this transformation, seeing it as the natural evolution of intelligent life. Others fought against it, trying to maintain their power in a universe that would soon leave them behind. The Veiler had chosen to withdraw, accepting that their time as galactic masters would end when humanity's transformation completed. James stood in the chamber, watching Kellen's silver form shimmer in the blue light still dripping from the crystal cylinder. He thought about Earth waiting above, billions of humans going about their daily lives, unaware that they carried within them the seeds of something that frightened civilizations millions of years older than human history. He thought about the ancient fleet that had fled at the mere presence of human space, and he finally understood why humanity had been left Alone for so long, the galaxy did not fear what humans were. It feared what humans were becoming, and now with truth finally revealed, nothing could stop the transformation that ancient civilizations had tried for 100,000 years to prevent. Humanity's secret was simple and terrifying. They were not meant to be contained, they were meant to transcend.